Hey folks, today I've got a really fun video. I think you're in for a real treat. I'm going to be comparing 4 different e-scooters. That's right, 4 different e-scooters. It's kind of an odd matchup you'll see here in just a minute, but I've got the Segway F30 here first, then I've got the Segway F40 right here, the Segway P65, and then the Apollo City Pro 2022. Now, like I said, it's a little bit of a weird matchup because let's face it, if you're shopping e-scooters, you're probably not going to be cross-shopping all these models at the same time. I mean, maybe you'll be looking at the F30 and the F40 here. Maybe you'll be looking at the P65 and the Apollo City Pro here, but you're probably not going to be looking at all of these at the same time. Now, if you're one of my subscribers, then you know that most of my videos are about RVs or RV related, how-to videos, that sort of thing. And my hope is that my videos in some form or fashion will help build up the family, encourage families to spend time together in the great outdoors through RVing. And so today's video is going to be just a little bit different. For me, e-scooters, I've seen them, they've been around for several years, and kind of every time I saw them, especially at campgrounds and campsites, I would think, they're a little unnecessary, a little bit over the top. Until we started going to some different campgrounds and different resorts where maybe the pool or the playground or something else was a good trek. And so I started realizing, it kind of saves time being able to get there faster. I would kind of joke around and say, those are for lazy people, right? I like to get my exercise, so I apologize. Sorry for saying those things. But I've come to realize that they're really about saving time, and they are a lot of fun. I'll talk about that more a little bit later. And so I started getting into these a little bit and tinkering with them. And so really my goal in today's video is to share what I've learned so far. If you're an RVer and you're looking to maybe get a scooter for yourself or your kids, where to start, kind of an entry-level crash course. And like I said, I've got a fairly eclectic, if you will, matchup of scooters here. But my goal is to really give you a comparison of how they stack up, how they differ from one another. And, of course, we've got the slowest on this end going up to the fastest or most powerful down on this end. So I'll give you those differences. I'll share my likes and dislikes. All these are ones that I have been using extensively, so I've got a pretty good feel how they stack up. And then I'll talk about who I would recommend them to. And then last, I'm going to do something really fun. I'm actually going to race these scooters. And no, I can't race them to 60 miles per hour because they don't go that fast to begin with. You can actually get some scooters that go that fast if you're interested, but these don't go anywhere near that fast. But I am going to race them, and so I'm going to start at the bottom of the hill down here and then race them all the way up to the top. That's about a 13% grade right there. So I think it'll be really interesting. It'll give you an idea of how each of these handles a grade like that with a payload on the scooter. So definitely stick around to the end because I think that's going to be really fun to see how they all stack up. So with that, let's start here with the Segway Ninebot F30, and this is going to be the slowest or most economical out of the bunch. And so this guy right here has a 300 watt motor in the front hub here, and it is going to get you up to about probably 15 miles per hour, with a payload on a flat surface. It has a range probably around 18 miles, and it can tackle supposedly a grade of up to 15%. Remember, I pointed out this grade over here is 13%, so this is supposed to handle that grade there. So this is your entry-level scooter here. Something like this on sale, you should be able to pick it up under $400, hopefully. What I really like about the Segway products is that just the overall user experience, they have really thought that out from the simple controls up here. You got a single button to power it on and go through all the modes and everything from the display, just how simple and straightforward it is. It's just really well designed. I mean, they really thought this out. They had someone who clearly went to school for user experience and, designed all this and perfected it. So really think they do a great job on that, and it's just simple and intuitive, especially for someone who's starting out. So all these are going to have throttles, of course. This one's real simple here for your thumb, and it's got a real simple button there, a little bell, and then of course you've got a brake there that actually goes to the rear there. So really simple scooter here. I think this is a great choice for someone who is lighter. What you're going to notice with electric scooters is they advertise a certain speed, a certain slope that they can climb, but when you put a payload on them, that's when it gets a little bit hairy. And so the heavier payload that's on here, it may not, you know, get up to the companies or the manufacturers what they rate it at. And so this one I would recommend for someone who's lighter, you know, maybe let's say under 125 pounds or less. If you're over that, you're just not going to be able to make it up hills. You'll see in just a minute here, like this one here that's 13%, not very efficiently at least. And so really this is going to be for someone lighter. I think even for kids, you know, the handlebar is a little bit taller right here, and so they may be, you know, holding on kind of at eye level, or just below eye level. But in terms of weight, I think this is a great size for someone who's lighter like that, okay? So that's really who I'd recommend this one for, but just very smooth, very intuitive. All the Segways are gonna connect through Bluetooth to an app, and you can control them and do different settings, upgrade the firmware and things like that. But in general, I think what you're gonna find on the Segways, they just have a really nice build quality. It's consistent. It's just very well thought out. And you know, you're gonna have great support if anything does go wrong. I actually had to call Segway on the, I think it was the P65 once, and I got somebody live within, I think it was 60 seconds or less on the phone from Segway. So that's really impressive. So I really like Segways a lot for that reason. You know, sometimes you might pay a little bit more for that brand name, but I think you're getting a lot at the same time. So that is the F30, very similar to our next one over here, the F40. Now this one's got an optional seat on it, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But in terms of form factor, these two are virtually identical. The size is the same, the platform and everything's gonna be the same, the tire size. Really the main difference here on the F40 is you're getting a slightly more powerful motor at 350 watts. Okay, so slightly more powerful motor, but otherwise the form factor is gonna be the same. They claim that it can go up to 18.6 miles per hour compared to the F30, which was only about 15.5 miles per hour. And then they claim that this one, the F40, can go up a 20% slope, okay? And then the range on this is about 25 miles. So again, 350 watt motor versus 300 watt over here. That's really what makes the F40 more powerful, more capable, just a slightly more powerful motor there. And this one on sale, you should be able to pick it up for $500 or less. So this one over here, I definitely would recommend over the F30. Again, for somebody who's lighter, you know, under 150 pounds, I'll just say on this one, it's gonna get you where you need to go, especially on flat surfaces, if you're mostly traveling on flat surfaces, and it's a lot of fun, okay? If you're going up hills and things like that, you're gonna find that really the F30 and the F40 here, they're gonna conk out at some point, especially if there's a heavier payload. So just factor that in mind when you're looking at these different scooters. You know, I'll talk about it more on the P65 and the Apollo down there, but what I would pay attention to more, regardless of which scooter brand you buy or, you know, which model, is pay attention to the top speed that the manufacturer states. I think that's probably a more accurate indicator to look at. Not that you disregard the speed of the motor, you know, how many watts and so forth, how powerful it is, but I think the top speed is going to give you a little bit more accurate indicator of how powerful that scooter is and what how it's going to handle a payload on there. So again, F40, great scooter here. I think that the price difference here, you know, being about $100 more than the F30 is worth it. And really this is kind of the most powerful in the F series that Segway makes right now. But let's take a look at this seat that's installed here. This is an optional seat from Segway, and it basically just kind of clamps on with screws to the bottom platform here. And it gives you this nice big zippered storage bag, plenty large to fit, you know, water bottles in there, snacks, whatever you want. And then it's got a really decent seat here, you know, really nice, a lot larger than a bicycle size seat, really comfortable. And so this is great for someone who maybe they like to sit down when they ride a scooter. They don't like to be standing up the whole time. And it's something you can put on there. It takes maybe a few minutes to, you know, put on and take off. But it's not permanent. And so if you decide to take it off and then you want to put it back on, no problem. You just got to make sure you got the right tools there. But it's just a really nice overall addition, I think, to the F series. And so, yeah, I think these are great budget-based scooters. And really we'll talk more about the payload when we get to these next two. But again, these are going to be for lighter riders, you know, people under 150 pounds, I would say over here, 125 pounds over here. The lighter you are, the more fun these are going to be essentially. All right, next let's take a look at the Segway P65. And I just got to confess, this is my favorite out of the bunch. It's not the most powerful, but it's definitely my favorite. And so let's take a closer look at this P65. Like I said before, with the Segways, you're going to get a really good user experience overall. And I think they just take it up to the next level here on the P65. You're going to get that build quality that I talked about that I really like on the Segways. I mean, I think they just do a really great job. And it just looks really nice visually. I mean, I think they nailed the design of it. Some of the things that I really like about this one are the size of the platform here. And I don't know if you get a clear idea of that in the video, but it is just really wide here. I'll put my big foot on here and just see, how much space you have. Compare that over here to the F series, or even over here on the Apollo. I mean, it's larger over here, but this P65 is just enormous. Plenty of space here. And don't tell anybody I do this, but because the manufacturer would not want this, but I actually sometimes put my kids on the front here and then put myself behind. Again, don't do what I do, but I'm just telling you, I have done it before, and this one does it a lot more comfortably than the other ones. But it's just a really well-designed scooter. Let me show you the interface. It's got little NFC cards to turn it on, or of course you can enter a passcode, and so you just put it right there, powers right on. I love this display here. I mean, it's just big and it displays everything you need to see. You got your battery indicator there, and then up here is going to be your throttle, your power when you engage it. It's just very easy to read. It's got automatic lights, as far as daytime running lights, headlights, where it comes on at the right time. It's got really nice controls here on the blinker, just very intuitive. Of course, it's got a horn and then a nice disc brake there. So I really like the interface on this P65 in particular. I think that's my favorite thing about it. This one has a single 500 watt motor. So we were looking at 300 watts, 350 watts, 500 watts. So a big jump from that F40 over here to the P65, whereas the Apollo that I'm going to talk about has dual 500 watt motors. More on that later. So 500 watt motor here. This one is advertised as going up to a maximum slope of 22%, top speed of 25 miles per hour. And you probably have a range on this depending on how fast you're running it and such, maybe in the 30 to 40 mile range, just depending again on how you're driving it. But I really like this one a lot. I mean, the lighting package on it, check out, the brakes in the back there, and just how it's got this kind of breathing, pulsing light down here that you can program and customize. It's just a really, really nice scooter, the way they put this one together. So this one overall is definitely my favorite among the batch. It's just a lot of fun, and the price on the P65 here is going to be just at or under $1,000. And then last, let's look at the Apollo City Pro 2022 model. So this is a completely different brand. All the rest I've showed you are Segway, Ninebot, and this one is made by Apollo. All right, so it's the Apollo City Pro 2022. And like I mentioned before, this is the most powerful out of the batch that I'm showing you today. This one has dual 500 watt motors, okay? So the P65 over here has a single 500 watt motor. This one is advertised as having two 500 watt motors, one in the front hub and then a second in the rear. So overall we should be at 1,000 watts. So we should be twice as powerful as the P65. More on that in just a bit. This one is advertised by the manufacturer of being able to tackle a 36% slope. So remember, the P65 was at a 22% slope, much more modest compared to 36%. And again, this little hill that I'm going to show you over here in just a little bit is about a 13% slope there. Then as far as the range goes, this one is going to get you probably 30 to 40 miles. Again, it's got a top speed of 32 miles per hour. And then the price on this one's going to be probably around $1,400, maybe a little bit less on sale. Now, something else that's very different about this Apollo City Pro is that it has suspension. So all the other scooters that I've showed you have just been fixed on the front and rear, whereas this one here actually has suspension. You can see both on the front here and then also on the rear. So that is one thing that's very different, again, about the Apollo City Pro, in addition to the far more powerful motor that's on here. Now, what I really like about this Apollo City Pro is that with all that power, it is a lot of fun. I mean, you feel that instant torque taking off, and you'll see that, I think, in the race here in just a little bit. But it's a lot of fun when you put it in that sport mode where it's putting, you know, all the power down to the wheels. It's a lot of fun, and you never get to a hill where you're wondering, am I going to make it up this hill? How fast am I going to be able to go up this hill? I mean, it's very, very powerful. Now, this one again has two 500 watt motors. The P65 has a single 500 watt motor. So the question is, does this one go twice as fast as the P65? And to that, I would say no, it doesn't. Remember, this has a top speed of about 32 miles per hour. This one is 25 miles per hour. So in my opinion, this one does not feel twice as powerful as the P65, even though it has two 500 watt motors. And this one has a single 500 watt motor on the P65. The Apollo City Pro, in my opinion, subjectively does not feel like it goes twice as fast. And so that's why earlier in the video I talked about, when you're looking at different scooters, regardless of the brand, I would pay less attention to the power of the motors, not that you completely disregard it, but I would pay more attention to that top speed and let that become an indicator of how powerful the scooter is going to feel when you put a payload on. So again, 32 miles per hour top speed, 25 miles per hour top speed. And I think that's a more accurate indicator of how these two differ. Now, as far as the interface on the Apollo, it's very simple and straightforward. You can see they've got just a screen kind of built into the handlebars up here. Very simple. You're seeing that information. One thing that I really like about the Apollo here is that, of course, you have your throttle here on the right side, but then over here, you actually have kind of like an engine brake where it basically uses the motor to slow you down instead of your front and rear drum brakes. And so I really like that. It's very smooth and effortless, but it's just a real simple layout here. The only thing I don't like is you can see they've got really just a mode button here, and then a blinker button, and then a power button. And so you use different combinations of holding these buttons or pressing them, you know, twice and so forth to do different functions. And I think it's a little bit counterintuitive. You kind of have to memorize how many pushes and whatnot on which buttons to get it to do things. Whereas I think Segway does a little bit better job on making things a little more intuitive. But this scooter is a lot of fun to get on and ride. Now, it's starting to get dark, so I gotta hurry and finish this video. But the other thing I will say about the Apollo having the suspension, to answer the question, you know, should you get a scooter with suspension or without, like all the other scooters that I've got laid out here? And I will say that I think adding suspension into the mix, although it can make the ride a little bit smoother if you're gonna be hitting lots of bumps, I think it also opens up the opportunity for there to be a little bit of wobble, a little bit more movement when you're going at higher speeds. And when I first got this Apollo City Pro, when I would go over 25 miles per hour, you know, 25 to 32 or so, I had a big wobble here on the front without any bumps, you know, just on smooth pavement. And basically what happened was, first the tire was out of balance. And so I put a wheel weight on, just like a wheel weight you'd put on your tire, to figure out how to balance it out. So I got that solved. But even then, there's still a little bit of a wobble on the front, and I believe it has to do with just some play with the suspension, you know, factored in. So my advice would be, you know, unless you're going through some really, you know, bumpy areas and that's important to you, I really don't think suspension is the best idea. I think it just adds something else into the mix that could go wrong or complicate things. And so for me personally, I like the more simple design of these other Segways that don't have any suspension. Now, enough of me talking already. Let's get to the fun part of the video, race these four scooters against one another and see how they all stack up. So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna put the camera on a tripod over here, and then I'm gonna take each scooter one at a time and record it racing up this hill as fast as I possibly can and get to the finish line. It's an expansion joint right at the top there by the house. Again, it's about a 13% grade right there. I will be the same rider on all the scooters, so I'm just north of 200 pounds there. That'll be the payload on each of them. And I'm gonna make sure that each scooter is in the sport mode or the fastest mode to give it the best chance of succeeding. And then I'm gonna record one set down here, times 4, right? And then another set up here just to give you a different vantage point and do a second run on each of them. and then I'll sync them all up together and put them in quadrants on the screen so we can watch and see them all at the same time, even though they were recorded separately. Well, anyways, guys, you saw it firsthand. I mean, if you want the fastest scooter off the line, then definitely go for the Apollo with those dual 500 watt motors. I mean, it's just that instant torque right off the line. It's a lot of fun. Now, for me personally, I really still like the Segway P65 over here. I mean, it technically has half the power, which is a single 500 watt motor, but in my opinion, as far as what does it actually feel like driving it, I would say you get about 80% of the acceleration and the fun on this P65 with a single 500 watt motor compared to the Apollo City Pro with the dual 500 watt motor. So just my opinion again, really it's a lot of fun. Now you probably saw in those test runs that these slower F series really struggled to get up that hill, and part of that is the payload. Again, I'm just north of 200 pounds, and so when you put that much payload on one of these smaller ones, it will struggle a little bit going up that hill. That was about a 13% grade. So if you're going up something like a 15% grade, you're 200 pounds, you're gonna be walking on one of these F series. Otherwise, if it's flat ground, you'll get moving just fine. It just won't be quite as fast as these other two down here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely know what you guys think in the comments below. I will include links to purchase all these in the description below. So I appreciate you using those to support the channel, as well as this cool helmet I found here. So definitely check those out. And as always, thanks for watching.